Daber el kol hadas b'nei, shall speak to all the Jewish people, v'amat aleim, and say to them, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki Kodesh ani Hashem Elokeichem. A very difficult pasuk. Difficult to understand. Very difficult to understand. Let me tell you what the pasuk says. The pasuk says you should be holy. Kedoshim tihiyu. How does a person become holy? Now, we're not going to really answer this. You maybe next year we'll go into the greater detail. How does a person become holy? That means it doesn't say, speak to the Jewish people and you should keep Shabbos, keep Yom Tov, keep the mitzvos. That's understandable. We're supposed to keep the mitzvos. It doesn't say, speak to the Jewish people and don't do sins. That's simple. It's obvious. We don't do sins. The Torah is telling you that you have to figure out a way to be a holier person. Does that mean you have to daven Shemona Esrei 10 minutes longer? Not necessarily. Does that mean when you daven you have to shake back and forth faster than the guy sitting next to you? No, it doesn't mean that either. Does that mean you have to keep Shabbos an extra hour? Or between meat and milk, instead of waiting 6 hours, wait 8 hours? Is that Kedusha? No. So how do you become a holier person? Maybe you want to answer that question for us. What could you do in your life that would make you, quote, a holier person? First of all, holier between who? Ben Adam lamakom, ben Adam lachaveru. You're trying to be holier between you and God or between you and people? Well, what is the pasuk referring to? And let's say it's between you and God. So now, does God want you to keep the mitzvahs? Yes. So if you keep every mitzvah the way you're supposed to, how do you become a holier person? What do you do to be holier?
It's holy also like separated, like you're different
Separate from what?
from other nations.
If you're married, you should separate it.
So if you're married, you separate from your wife, you'll be a holier person. I think you'll be a lonelier person.
No.
I don't know if you'll be a holier person. You'll be a lonelier person, maybe. Your laundry won't get done. You'll be hungry.
Yeah.
That means we don't believe in separation for Kedusha, even though there is an element of separation, but we don't buy into some of every element.
But we should understand what is be holy. What does it mean?
That's what I'm asking you. I was looking for
If
you
we
for
don't know
the
that-
answer.
Couldn't
your thoughts?
identify this.
Maybe
What?
to clean your thoughts.
Well, you're supposed to, Hashem does not hold you responsible for your thoughts. That means Hashem holds you responsible for your actions. If you get angry and in your mind you wish you could rob a person or kill a person, you're not guilty of murder. It's only a thought. If you take that thought and you buy a gun and you shoot someone, now you're in trouble. Okay? But thinking about it is not enough. So there's a concept to be kadosh, to be holy. What that means you look at a person, sometimes you can look at their face, and their face shines, and you say, that's a holy person. But what does that person do different than you? They keep Shabbos, you keep Shabbos. They keep Torah, you keep Torah. They keep kosher, you keep kosher. So how do they become a holier person? That's a hard question to answer. And we don't have an answer. I'm just making you aware that you need to think about it. Maybe next week you'll give me some answers as to how you can become holier. That means you can have two people that do exactly the same thing. One becomes holier because of maybe their actions. Maybe they do chesed. Does that make you a holier person? What can you do to become a holier person? Look at the next pasuk. It says, Ish imo v'aviv tiro. A person should fear their mother and their father. So Rashi says, why is mother first? Because it's natural to fear your father. So therefore the Torah says, fear your mother also. That means don't be just afraid of your father, be afraid also of your mother. Fear your mother. What does that teach you? So Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz gives a famous answer. He says, very often in life, we are products of our nature. Why do we act a certain way? Because that's our nature. Hashem made us this way. So the Torah is telling you, that's not an excuse. The Torah says, fear your mother and your father. Your answer can't be, oh, I don't fear my mother. I love my mother. My father I'm afraid of because I don't see my father all day. But my mother, she's not as tough as my father. My father is tougher. So I'm not afraid of my mother. Kids are not afraid of their mother. They're afraid of their father. The Torah is telling you, no, you should be afraid of your mother also. But it's not my nature. So what? Go against your nature. Sometimes you have to take your nature that's a sign of weakness and do something to make it stronger. I mean, sometimes you have to go a little bit beyond that. They bring down a famous story with Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. It's a famous story. He was once flying to Israel on an airplane, and he was in first class, and his family was in regular, in coach. And every hour, the kids would come and say, how are you doing? Is everything all right? Everything all right? And he was sitting next to someone not Jewish. And someone not Jewish says, I don't get you Jewish people. When we have people that are old, our children don't talk to us anymore. And you, the older you are, the more respect they give you. So why is that? So he says it depends on how you see the world. We believe Hashem created the world. So therefore, the closer you are to creation, the holier you are. So I'm holier than my children because I'm one generation closer to God. You believe in evolution. You came from the monkeys. So therefore, the further you are from the monkeys, the holier you are. So your kids think they're better than you because they're further away from the monkey than you are. That's what he said. He says, how do we know that? Because it says, Ish ima v'aviv tiro. Why? Because keep my Shabbos. Shabbos is a symbol of creation. So since Hashem created the world, and that's what Shabbos is all about, to remember that Hashem created the world, so therefore, the closer you are to Hashem's creation, the holier you are, the older you are, the more special you are. In the non-Jewish world, the younger children are smarter than the older parents, and the younger children are much more savvy, so therefore they see themselves as more special in some ways, and therefore that's what his famous story with Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. So, he talks about over here, Ish ima v'aviv tibro. You're supposed to respect your parents. But if your parents tell you violate the Shabbos, what's the answer?
No.
The answer is no. Why? Because the same person who told me respect my parents is the same person who told me to keep the Shabbos. Okay. What happens if your parents tell you to do something that is not from the Torah? It's only midrabanan. That means your father says to you, I want you to taste my cup of coffee to make sure it's not too hot. You say, I'm sorry that I had fleischiks, I had meat 3 hours ago, I wait 6 hours. And you put milk in the coffee. So the father says, I don't care. Respecting your parents is from the Torah. Yes. Waiting 6 hours is not from the Torah. So therefore, I'm telling you what to do. Now what do you do?
The Torah says don't do don't.
No,
The Torah says you should listen to the rabbis. But what I'm trying to tell you is...
milk and
Right, it's not so simple. The bottom line is, it's not so simple. It's not so simple to say to your father, I'm not going to listen.
Yeah.
He brings down a question over here that let's say you have a friend from a particular family, and this family does something against your parents. So your father says to you, I don't want you to be friends with that boy. And you say to your father, why not? He's my friend. He says, yeah, but the family is a bad family, and the family is hurting our family, and therefore I'm telling you, don't be friends. So now do you have to listen to your father? On one hand, the Torah says, don't hate your brother in your heart. The Torah says, give musar, the Torah says, kamocha. So there are so many mitzvahs that talk about not hating another Jew. And yet, your father is telling you, I don't want you to be friends with that family. I'm very careful. I think he's a bad influence on you. So what do you do? These are difficult questions to answer. Let's say someone is your friend, and he wants you to be a dayan on a beis din. Are you allowed to be? Does being a friend make you pasul to be a dayan? The answer is no. You can still be. If you hate a person, you can't be a dayan. But if you love the person, you can. Why? Because the same way I love you, I have to love the other person also. There's no... I'm supposed to love every Jew. That means I'm not pasul because I love you. I'm supposed to love the other guy also. If I hate you, that makes me pasul. Because I'm not supposed to hate you. I'm not allowed to hate you. I can hate how you act.
Because of that.
Right.
I have a question. How long do you have to wait if you have meat or flesh to have dairy?
So the
So
Ramah
say 4
says
hours.
1 hour. The Yekis wait 3 hours. There are some opinions, the Pri Chodesh, that says 4 hours. Yeshiva guys wait 6 hours. Some wait 5.5 hours, 5 hours and 31 minutes, but I wait 6 hours.
But Torah doesn't say anything about it.
No, the Torah
Torah just says
you
don't mix them.
don't mix meat and milk together 3 different times, it says it. And one is that you can't have pleasure from it, you can't cook it, you can't eat it.
Rabbinical.
Correct, it's rabbinical.
But Arizal said he's keep this law 24 hours.
That could be. That's a very unusual opinion.
So which one should we follow?
6 hours is what the Shulchan Aruch says. Okay, that's what you should follow. He asks a question over here. Can a son give his father a haircut?
Yeah.
Let's say you're a barber, and your father calls you up and says, you're a barber, I want you to come by and give me a haircut. Is he allowed to do it? So he brings down over here from the Moshe Zakenim the Rabboseinu Balei HaTosfos, which was written 2,000 years ago. And he says, Osir leben, it's forbidden for a son, l'saper la'aviv, to give his father a haircut.
Why?
Because he's using sharp instruments,
Yes.
scissors, knives. Shema, he might cut his father and draw blood.
Yeah.
Va'afilim aviv mochel, and even if father says, I forgive you, ein b'mechilaso klum, means nothing.
But father can give the son a haircut. Right?
Yes.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Oh.
But he brings down, it's interesting, he brings down, and this was written 2,000 years ago. It wasn't written like 50 years ago or 10 years ago. Now, someone asked me today that, barbers use clippers, they use different things, but they still use scissors, yes.
If my wife cut my hair, is okay?
Sure.
No.
As long as she doesn't cut your throat, you're fine.
No, I'm serious. No.
How many
what's
men
the law?
let their wives hold sharp instruments near their throat? I don't know. You're a very brave man.
No, what the law said, law.
The law says you're a very brave man.
Good to go.
Just make sure your life insurance is paid up in full.
And she doesn't know it.
Oh, you can hope she doesn't know. For all you know, she bought the life insurance on you. You're a brave man, my friend. You're a brave man. Now, he brings down the story with the Munkacher Rebbe, the Minchas Elozar. He says he used to have a barber, but he didn't like the barber, or the barber acted in ways that was not appropriate, so he didn't want the barber to be around. So finally, one of his students was a barber, and one of his students gave him a haircut and did a very nice job, had a very gentle touch. And eventually, the Minchas Elozar allowed that student to always give the Rebbe a haircut. So he says, it's not so simple, because if you have a student who you taught Torah to, he's supposed to treat you like a father. So who says he's allowed to give you a haircut? A student is not allowed to cause the Rebbe to bleed either. So he says, Al Koponim, he says, Roim, we see from the example of the Munkacher Rebbe, Shemuter l'talmid l'saper et rabo. It's permitted for a student to give his Rebbe a haircut.
You can do that?
You can.
You can.
Right. So while you can't necessarily give your father a haircut, but it looks like you can give the rabbi a haircut. Doesn't say anything about your wife.
I understand, but
Okay.
still I have a question.
Yeah. You have any more questions? Can you give your wife a haircut?
Okay.
Not so simple either. He brings down over here an interesting concept. Tough crowd tonight. There must be something in the water. He says, listen to this. He says, when we do Shmona Esrei, we say, Osa Shalom B'Ramo, Fuyasa Shalom, Oleinu V'Kol B'nai Yisrael, V'imaru, Amen, right?
I should record it.
Why are we going to listen to this?
Record it.
Okay, you can record it. He says, V'imaru, Amen, and we should say Amen. Now, even though you're davening by yourself, you say Amen. So who's saying Amen? And we should say, who's the we? That's what the question is. He brings down this from the Mata Moshe. He also says that from Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, when you go be Menachem over someone, let's say the person is sitting by themselves. So you say, Hamokom Yinachem Eschem. Eschem is plural. Even though there's only one person sitting Shiva, you say, Hamokom Yinachem Eschem. You should be Menachem, the person who is sitting Shiva. So he says, why plural? So he gives a very interesting answer. He says, no Jew is ever alone. every Jew has two angels that accompany them. That's why when we come home from shul, we say Shalom Aleichem. So he says in davening, when we say V'imberu and let us say Amen, who's us? Him, with the two malachim. And when someone is sitting Shivla, even though they're by themselves, you say Hamokom Yinachem Eschem, you, plural, not Oscha. Why? Because you have the angels that are there to accompany. So he has, it's a very interesting concept that a Jew is never alone. Now, it talks about in Parshas Kedoshim, it talks about Lo Selech Rochel Ba'amecho. Don't be a tattletale. That means don't speak Lashon Hara. Lo Samod Al Dam Re'echo. Don't stand on your brother's blood, because if you embarrass someone, they turn red. So that's like you embarrassing them, you're murdering them. Ani Hashem. And it goes through a lot of the halachot, or references a lot of halachot of Lashon Hara, not speaking Lashon Hara. So listen to what the Baal Shem Tov says. You've all heard of the Baal Shem Tov, correct?
Oh, yeah.
He says, the Baal Shem Tov writes as follows, that if you're the type of a person who always finds fault in the other guy, what's happening is the other guy is only a mirror of you. And all the fault you're finding in him, who really has those faults? You do. Kol ha-posel b'mumo posel. If I know that you have this fault, you know why I'm such an authority? Because I have the same fault. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says.
Sometimes he's judging people. Can say, "Would you see something wrong? That's you. You should change your."
There you go. I would never
I'm right.
found that with
This
him, so
concept,
I wouldn't know that
I
experience.
find out he.
I did not find that experience with him yet. There are some people, what's the alternative to sinat chinam? Avat chinam. There are some people, I have someone that always consults with me, and whenever they send me an email, they send also a copy to a family member. And the family member always writes back, I don't know why you say that, I don't know, and they're always critical. And whenever I write back, I always say, well, thank you very much for your insights. They were very helpful. I really appreciate that you took the time to write. Finally, this person says, I don't get it. He says, my relative always criticizes me, and you always compliment me. Okay, that's the way it is. But the Baal Shem Tov says that when a person is critical, it's really because when they're speaking to the other person, they're holding a mirror, and they're really talking to themselves. He brings down the Marsham. The Marsham is Rav Sholem Mordechai Shvadron, who was Rav Sholem Shvadron's, I think, grandfather. He says, Mizeh yikach ha'odam musar. A person should learn a lesson. Shelo lesaper al chaveiro lashon hara. Don't speak against your friend lashon hara. Ki ma shero dover she'enu kahogam mechaveiro. What you see wrong in your friend, mistama hu pogim benafsho. Probably is because you have the same problem. So the Marsham says something very, very similar, and it's really a little bit bizarre. He says there's a very, very similar concept that there's this idea of not speaking lashon hara because of the fact that whatever you speak, you've also seen someone else have as well. So it's an interesting concept.
This is nice, interesting concept. But how you could prove people who is criticized? Somebody say, "Aha, I'm perfect. You have some problem. This one."
Okay, so now let's understand
could
something.
be in
It's a very difficult question. It says the Torah says that if I see you do something wrong, I should rebuke you. So you shouldn't do an Aveira. Okay, let's understand what that means, okay? I see you doing an Aveira. So now, let's say you live in a community, there's an Eruv. You find out in Shul that the Eruv is broken, it's down. You walk out of Shul, and there's a mother with a stroller and her baby. Now, what are you supposed to do? Do you go over to the mother and say, I have bad news to tell you? The Eruv is down. What's she supposed to do now? She's supposed to stop in the middle of the sidewalk with her baby, who's 3 months old, for the rest of Shabbos. That's it.
In the winter time.
No, let's make it the winter time. What's she supposed to
And
do?
it's raining.
Or it's raining.
Snowing.
What does law say?
So I'm
Stop
asking you.
it.
So the answer is the halacha says,
Halacha.
don't tell her anything. Let her just take the carriage back home. For now, let her be a shogeg and not a mazy. Because if you tell her, she's going to do it anyway.
Embarrassment.
She has no choice.
Yeah.
Yes, she could wait till a non-Jew comes and she could ask a non-Jew to take the baby home. But the fact remains that she probably will take the baby home. So better she should be shogeg than mazed. Okay.
Shogeg.
Shogeg means accidental.
Accident.
She didn't know. She doesn't know.
She don't
She
know.
thinks the Eruv is up. She doesn't know any better. So let her be accidental. Someone comes to you, you're at someone's house, and you're sitting in their home, and I've had this. A guest goes into the bathroom and turns off the light.
Yeah, by accident.
By accident. Okay. Now the light is off in the bathroom.
I know.
That's not good. People need the light on in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay? So you say to your daughter says, I'm going to take my little boy in and he's going to turn on the light. How old is the little boy? 3 years old. Is a 3-year-old boy allowed to turn on the light?
No.
Probably the answer is no. If he's 6 months old, maybe yes, maybe not. But it says in the Torah, right? Don't do any work. Ata, uvincha, and your children. Now, which child are we talking about? Not a bar mitzvah boy, because a bar mitzvah boy is part of Ata, is you. Right? He's an adult. So when it says that you have to keep Shabbos and your children, what is the age of the children? Doesn't say.
Yes.
1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old supposed to keep Shabbos.
Yeah, sometimes.
So now what are you supposed to do? So you say to them, don't do that. You shouldn't do that because you're not allowed to have a child turn on the light. But we need the light on in the bathroom.
Yeah, what do you do?
Okay, those are some of the more simple questions. But there are people who, you feel are doing something wrong. So you want to give them criticism. Call that musar. So they say there's 3 rules to give musar. The first rule is don't do it. The second rule is don't do it. And the third rule is don't do it. Those are the 3 rules. Because you have to be a really holy person to want to hear criticism. Most people don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to be told they did a mistake. And most people don't want to hear it from you. That means if you're the rabbi of the shul, maybe that's your job. But if you are simply one of the members of the shul or one of the members of the family, or a husband to a wife or a wife to a husband, the last thing you want to hear is criticism. Because your reaction is going to be, who are you to tell me? You think you're so holy?
That
You're not so
brings up
holy.
a story. I get people telling me sometimes, how come I don't come here, I don't come there, and they don't come over here themselves all the time.
So you react, when they tell you this,
I
your
listen
first
to
reaction
it.
is,
I listen to it.
no, but in your heart you're saying is, who are you to tell me? You're no better than me anyway. You don't do,
Particular way here, they tell me,
right. So
and they don't
This
come
has been never
themselves.
criticize the people.
So what it means
What should I
is,
learn to do?
what it means is
Yeah.
that there is a certain skill, and most people don't have that skill. And number 2 is, you have to make sure the person is open to the criticism. That means, if you know that this person is not going to listen to you, maybe you're better off saying nothing. Now, it's a problem. Because when someone misbehaves, the first question we ask is, where's his parents?
Yeah.
Where's the community? How come no one gave him criticism? Part of the job of parents is to educate their children, teach them the difference between right and wrong. Part of the job of the school is to teach the students the difference between right and wrong. But it's a very difficult mitzvah. So when the Torah says, Lo tisnes ochicha bilvovecha, don't hate your brother in your heart, give your brother musar and that he should not do the Averas over and over again, it's a very difficult thing to do. And if you do it because you think you're better than the other person, then for sure you shouldn't do it. If you do it and you're really sincere, maybe your words will be heard, but it's hard to know. It brings down over here a halacha about not giving yourself tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Okay? So it says over here, don't make cuts into your skin. In the olden days when someone died, to show that you were crying, they used to make cuts in their skin. We don't do that anymore.
Oh, they cut themselves?
They would cut themselves to show that they are in mourning.
Oh,
We tear kriya, we tear our clothes, but we don't do them. Then it's, right?
Stress.
Right. Then it says, "Uketoves kaka lo titem bochem." Do not give a tattoo.
So somebody Jewish is not supposed to have any tattoos.
Correct.
Because I see so many people out there, everybody's with a tattoo.
That is correct again. Tattoos are extremely popular. Rabbi Vaji Yosef has a question. He says that there was this guy that wasn't from, and he was in the army, he was a sailor. So he had over here on his arm, where he normally would put his tefillin, a tattoo of a naked lady.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So he says, every time now that he's religious, he rolls up his sleeve to put on his tefillin, he sees the naked lady, how can he make the bracha on the tefillin? that's his question. He says, how is he supposed to put on tefillin? So the question was, could he maybe put on the tefillin, he says maybe buy a bigger pair of tefillin so it covers the picture, it covers the lady completely. But then he's putting, what? Yeah, like a very big pair of tefillin that covers the lady completely.
And then too, if somebody gets a cut or an injury with a tattoo, you say some of that ink can get in.
Yes.
And get into your...
So then the question is, can you remove the tattoo? Today, sometimes you can burn the tattoo out, you can remove the tattoo. Some people said, why don't you do it, just cover it over with more ink, black it out. But that's making another tattoo. You can't make a tattoo. So it goes back and forth as to...
Can they do the, operation and take it off?
They could take it off, but it leaves a bruise and it leaves, he could do that. But it's an interesting question. He brings down the famous story. He says that, in the Beis HaMikdash, especially during the second Beis HaMikdash, he says when the Kohanim did the Avodah, they used Hashem's real name, the Shem HaMeforash. When you heard the Shem HaMeforash in the Beit HaMikdash, in the bracha, whatever it is, what did you answer? What was the answer? So when we make a bracha today, and someone hears you make a bracha, you answer Amen. In the Beit HaMikdash, that's not what they answered. They answered Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam V'Em. And on Yom Kippur, that's what we say, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam V'Em. He said that when a person left the Beit HaMikdash, they walked through two pillars or of lions or whatever it was, and they would forget the Shem HaMeforash. Now, one of the religions where someone performed all these miracles, there's a sefer out that says, what did he do? When he was in the Beit HaMikdash and he heard the Shem HaMeforash, there's two opinions. Either he took a pen or something and he scratched it into his skin, or he wrote it on a piece of paper and he cut himself and he inserted the piece of paper. When he left, he forgot it, but when he took a bath or a shower the next day, he saw it and he remembered it. And therefore he was able to perform all these miracles using the Shem HaMeforash. So there are many times you have false prophets who are known to have done certain miracles, he says, and those miracles were real, but they were not real because they were a Navi, or they were powerful, or they knew sorcery. It was because they had the Shem HaMeforash and they were able to use it.
You're gonna get punished.
What?
You're gonna get punished, no?
Well, they're talking about Christianity and all these other religions where they use it. Yes, these people eventually...
Not allowed to use the name of the God.
You're not allowed to use Hashem's name for your own personal uses.
Problem.
Right. He brings out something very interesting. It says, Mipnei Seva Tokum. You're supposed to stand up before an older person. What's the age of a person that you have to stand up when they walk in?
7.
The answer is 70. Okay, 70.
Oh.
That's the halacha.
70 and up.
If a person is 70 years old and he walks in, you're supposed to stand up for him. You
Doesn't
may
matter
say
if he-
v'tokum.
religious, not
No,
religious.
it doesn't say there's a
Doesn't-
difference.
Doesn't matter.
No. So he asks the question, what happens if someone who's not Jewish, he's 75 years old, and he's Megayer, he converts to Judaism. Now when he walks in, he's Jewish, right? Now he's Jewish. Do you have to stand up for him? He's 75 years old. So he brings down from the Show Lameshiv that since a person who converts gets a new neshama, it's like a child who's born. So you have to wait another 75 years.
Wow. If you become a Gerim, right?
Right. He says the same way a ger is not chayiv in onesh min hashamayim until he's 20 years old, so he has to wait 20 years after he's megayer. It's not so simple. He says we see by Avram Avinu that Hashem stood up for Avram Avinu when he came to visit him when he was sick. Why was he sick? Because he had a brit milah, which meant he became Jewish. If that's the case, Avram was like a baby. So why was Hashem standing up for him?
Oh, baby.
He wasn't 99, he was a baby. We see from Avram that you're 99, you're not a baby. So he goes back and forth and he asks that question. But it's very interesting. He says that when someone converts to Judaism, if they're considered as if they were born brand new, and they get a new neshama, so-called, so then their neshama is not 70 or 80 or 90 years old. Their neshama is just is fresh. So some of these rules and restrictions may not apply to them. So I found that to be a very interesting
Yeah,
thing.
Everything is not simple.
But this, I not follow Rabbi. The actually neshama, we could identify the,
When a person converts, they get a new neshama.
the
So
age of the neshama, because neshama sometimes came from
right, but when it's born, it's considered like the clock starts all over again.
like the,
So if a person that converts becomes a ger, and he's 70 years old, he's not 70. He's a brand new
No,
baby.
he's talking about Nishama from Gilgulim.
He brings down over here about rebuking others. He says rebuke doesn't work.
What's a rebuke?
Musar, to tell a person what they're doing is wrong.
Oh.
He says one of the basic concepts of human relations is that people hate criticism. They hate it worse than poison, and they avoid it like the plague. So if you give someone musar, you rebuke them out of concern and out of love, I understand.
Ah,
Bless you.
no good, like it.
Опять критикуешь.
No.
You see, he gave you musar.
sorry, yeah.
Okay?
Thank you,
So
and
it's not so simple.
We'll see how you
It's not so simple. Okay,
Напугал ты мозг.
let's go on. Maybe one more story, then I'll let you guys go. Here we go. Listen to this. Listen to this.
Не будете критиковать. Yeah. So.
Okay, you finished with this
I
guy?
say
Okay.
if you sneeze in this way.
Not your way. Got it.
Otherwise you take a highway.
He
Some
criticized
other
me.
codes going on.
He said no criticize. I say okay.
It's been raining. It's
Okay. There's a famous pirush on the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch called the Bach, Beis Chet, the Bach. The author of the Bach, the Bayit Chadash, is Rabbi Yoel Sirkis. Rabbi Yoel Sirkis was the father-in-law of the Taz. In Shulchan Aruch, one of the Perushim throughout the Shulchan Aruch is the Taz. In Orach Chaim, you have the Taz and the Mogen Avraham. In Yoredeya, you have the Taz and the Shach, but the Taz is all through. And the Bach is another Pirush, both on the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch. Very well known. One day, there was a person who was very sick, and they came to the Bach to write a kamiya. A kamiya is an amulet. To write something to hang around a person's neck
Make
to
sure they don't
protect
get
them,
sick.
so they shouldn't get sick. And he wrote one, and when he placed it on the sick person, within moments the person started to get better, had the strength to stand, and was eventually healed. And people asked him to write other cameos, and he did, and people who were sick became healthy again. Finally, one time, someone opened up the cameo to see what was he writing inside, and he wrote inside the one that they opened up. He says, "Hashem, cure this person, and I give him the zchut of the mitzvah I got for learning Masechet Baba Kama or Baba Basra." So he dedicated part of his learning
Give it to the guy.
to give to the guy to make him feel better, and that's what got him better. That's how powerful the Bach was. So there wasn't anything Kabbalistic or mystical. He dedicated learning so the person should have a refuah shalem. It happened that once the Bach was traveling to the city of his son-in-law, the Taz, for a visit, and when he arrived, everybody greeted him. The great Bach was here. The Taz was the rabbi of the city. Taz was his son-in-law. I'm sorry, I corrected that. And there was one person sitting in the Beis Medrash who didn't go over to say hello. It was one of the students, whatever it was. He was sitting in the Beis Medrash, and he didn't pay attention to the Bach. Finally, people came over to him, and they said to him, why are you ignoring the father-in-law of the rabbi, the Bach? He's such a famous person. Why don't you go over and say hello to him? And he says to him, I can't go over and say hello to him. He's in Cherem, in Shamayim. In heaven, they put him in Cherem. Now that's pretty crazy stuff. Finally, the Bach says, you're telling me I'm in Cherem, in Shamayim? How do you know I'm in Cherem, in Shamayim? What did I do? He says, when you came to the city, two people came to you with a question of money. And instead of listening to them, you know what you said? Oh, it's a small amount of money. Don't waste my time. Figure it out on your own. And the halacha says that a rabbi has to treat every case the same, whether it's 10 cents or $10 million. And you just threw it away. So in Shamayim, they put you in Cherem. And the Bach says, you're right, I remember that when I came in, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. And he went over and he fixed his mistake. So then he went over to this person, and he says, I wrote this sefer called the Bach on Shulchan Aruch. I want you to read it. Tell me your opinion. So he gave it to him, and he read it, and it was perfect, it was beautiful. And he didn't tell him anything. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. After the third week, he says to him, I was waiting for an answer on the sefer. What did you think of it? I says, it's fantastic. He says, that's great. I'm going to send it to the printer. So he says, do me a favor, don't send it to the printer. Don't print it. Leave it alone. Don't print it. He says, no, I'm going to send it to the printer. He sends it to the printer, and this boy goes over to the printer, and he says to the printer, don't print it. I know he hired you to make 1,000 copies. Don't print it. Leave it alone. So now the Bach comes over and says, what? You tried to stop the printer? And he tells the printer to print it. And the printer starts printing the sefer. The Bach comes over to this guy and says, what's your name? Who are you? And he was someone that was known as the Megale Amukot. Have you ever heard of the Megale Amukot? Megale Amukot was a big Kabbalist, very famous Kabbalist. His grave is in the cemetery in Krakow. There's a small little cemetery in Krakow. I've been there.
In Polska?
Right in Krakow, in the city.
Poland.
In Poland.
Yeah, Polska.
And that's where the Ramah is buried. And a little bit over is where the Megale Amukos is buried. And so is the Tosas Yontov, and so is the Bach. The Bach is buried in that cemetery. So when he heard that he was the Megale Amukot, who was a well-known Kabbalist, so he understood right away how he knew about the story and everything else. So he said to him, why did you stop the printing of my sefer? I just want you to know the printer already started to print it. So the Megale Amukot said, your neshama was brought to this world to write this sefer. Now that you've written it, your neshama has no more purpose in this world. A week later, the Bach died. And he was buried in the
So
cemetery.
means
Right there.
if you wouldn't print it, you wouldn't die?
That's right.
Yeah.
He says, your neshama came to write this book.
Sí.
So you wrote it.
Miras
Don't
próximo.
print it.
Miras
All I said,
próximo.
you don't print it. But he went ahead and printed it anyway.
You know.
He says that I don't care if Hashem wants me to leave this world. My mission was to deliver the Torah. That was my mission. Indeed, as soon as the book was published, the Bach passed away. So the power of some of these people that were Kabbalists, they knew things and they said things that we don't understand. The Ramchal, the Arizal, they had insights we didn't have. But, the Bach said, my job was to bring this book to light. I'm going to do my job. Hashem's going to take my neshama. Nothing I can do
How
about
do you know the Kabbalistic people? They have a connection? Or
that. They
have
have a phone connection to Shemaim that we don't have. They see things on a different, we're talking about parallel universe. They can see things in your neshama that the average person doesn't. I guess. Now, many of the people who claim to be Kabbalists, many of them probably are fakers. They may or may not be.
they don't have this power.
They don't have it, but they pretend like they do.
Yeah.
But there are those, Abu Chatzera, Rav Kaduri. There were people who had
Fantastic.
powers we don't understand.
When was this story when you just read?
The Bach probably lived easily 500 years ago. I
So
don't
the
know.
Bach musician and
1500.
composer is not
Like
his...
1500?
No, this is not the same. This is Beis Ches. His name was Rav Yoel Circus.
Oh, it's just...
The word Bach was Beis Chadash, was the name of the book he wrote.
This Bach was like Bach.
Like
And the
15
other one was
16.
Bach, B-A-C-H. That was a composer.
Rabbi, like 15 and 16s, right? Like
Yeah. I have to know exactly. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much. Rabbi.
One more comment.